Hello and welcome to a new episode of Vedic Spirituality. My name is Manan Gopaldas, and today we're going to discuss the history of the Kali Yuga. It is not a very detailed description, but it's just a few points that we're going to discuss. And it is especially the history of the Vedic society. In the Vedic view, it's not the world history of Kali Yuga, but it is the development within the Vedic tradition within the last 5,000 years. And we have to start like 5,000 years ago, which was the last reign of the last Vedic king, who was Parikshit Maharaj. Yeah, maybe he's not the last, he's the second last. His son might have been the last, but Parikshit Maharaj was definitely the last very prominent Vedic king. So he was the grandson of Arjuna, who was the great hero of the Mahabharata battle. And after King Yudhishthir, the eldest brother of Arjuna, he became the king. And at that time, so the Vedas say, that the whole world was unified under the Vedic culture, under the supervision of the emperor who was based in India, and who was Parikshit Maharaj. And there were of course many kings and many tribes throughout the lands, but he was the emperor. So all they were listening and paying tribute to Parikshit Maharaj. And he made sure that all the Vedic principles are followed in his kingdom. And it is described how in his kingdom there were no bad activities. There was no slaughtering of innocent animals. There was no illicit relationships that destroy the psyche and the integrity of the society. And there was no gambling addictions, and no excessive misuse of substances and addictions and so on. So everything was going very well, and there was almost no disease. The weather was very good. The climate was very benevolent for the prosperity of the society. So that makes a good king. A good king will make the land fertile, will make the people happy. So this was the case 5,000 years ago, and everything was based on the Vedic principles, which we discussed in previous videos. So what happened at his time? He was cursed by a Brahmana to die within 7 days. And the story is like that Parikshit Maharaj was once in the forest hunting, because the Kshatriyas, they are training to kill, because they have to protect in case there are robbers or bad elements that has to be tackled. So in order to protect the society, a Kshatriya, he has to know how to use bow and arrow to kill someone. So they were allowed to hunt in the forest, to train that. In the same time also, they were taking care that the animal populations within the forests stay balanced. Yeah, much like in these days, I don't know in your countries, but in my country, in Switzerland, they have very strict regulations. They have the hunting seasons, and they're allowed to shoot this many deers. And it is needed also that the population of the deers will not become too much, because it will be then destroying the forest if there are too many deers. So in the same manner, the Kshatriyas, they were used to hunt, to keep the balance in the forests, and also to train how to kill. So once Parikshit Maharaj, he became very thirsty, and he also lost his way a bit, and he came to a cottage of a Brahmana who was sitting inside in deep meditation. And Parikshit Maharaj, he approached that Brahmana for water, but he didn't get any response. So somehow or other, by the arrangement of providence, some anger arose in Parikshit Maharaj, and there was a dead snake on the floor, and he took that snake with his bow and put it around the neck of that Brahmana. So the son of this Brahmana, his name was Shringi, he was a very powerful, had a lot of mystic powers, and he could see this in his mystical vision, and immediately he cursed Parikshit Maharaj that he will die within 7 days by a snake bite. So when his father, means the Brahmana who had the snake around his neck, came out of his meditation and he could understand what happened, he became very sad, because he knew that if Parikshit Maharaj will die, the whole Vedic culture will deteriorate very quickly, because a strong king is able to protect, and if the king is weak or the king is gone, then the protection will be gone. And so this what happened is that after Parikshit Maharaj's untimely departure, slowly the Vedic culture started to deteriorate. And from this story also we can understand that the deterioration of the Vedic culture started from the Brahmana caste, because it is said that those who were born were demons, or like not godly minded persons in the previous age, they will take birth as Brahmanas in the Kali Yuga. So therefore, the Brahmanas, they are those who are actually holding the wisdom, the keeper of knowledge, the keeper of this transcendental knowledge, which we discussed in previous videos, as well as they are above the king. So they can regulate the king also. And there are also instances in the Vedic scriptures that when the king was bad, the Brahmanas, they were powerful enough to replace him. However, we can see that the deterioration started in the Brahman caste. Means they started to fall down from the purity that is needed to be a Brahmana. They started to develop greediness, and so it happened that after the death of Parikshit Maharaj, slowly the Brahmanas became greedy. They started to, instead of leading everyone to a higher goal, they themselves became materialistic and started to act on their own agenda for their own material benefits, for their labha and puja, for their material benefits and their name and fame. So what happened is that Vedic culture lost its essence, and it is described that it is it is told by the Vedas that what happened is that people started to do so many animal sacrifices, because the basic parampara had been lost, the disciplic succession had been lost, and this focus on the spiritual realization had been lost. People, they started to read the Vedas and took it in the wrong way. And the Vedas, they describe certain animal sacrifices. So they in the name of Vedic sacrifices started to kill so many animals and started to eat meat. So that became in India a very prominent feature, that there was a lot of animal killing and in the name of Vedic sacrifice. And that happened because there was no strong king who took care that the Vedic principles were followed in the right manner. And also the Brahmanas, they were not anymore qualified, and they stopped following the essence, and they started to follow the material part of the Vedas. So at that time, the Supreme Consciousness, Vishnu, he incarnated as Buddha in order to stop that. So Buddha came and he established the principle of ahimsa, of non-violence, and because the Vedic scriptures were largely misinterpreted and misused, he rejected the Vedic literature, and he said that we should have a moral life, we should live in non-violence, we should not kill the animals, and we should be a Buddha, do what the Buddhists do, and reject the Vedic scriptures. So that happened when Buddha came, and he rejected the Vedic scriptures because they are were widely misused and misinterpreted. So that's what happened when Buddha came, and slowly Buddhism became very strong, and even it came that strong that almost it pushed away the whole Vedic, the whole Hinduism, so to say, the whole followers of the Vedic culture. And what happened next was that Lord Shiva, he came as Shankara, and it is Shankaracharya, and it is described in the Vedas that Lord Vishnu, he empowered Lord Shiva to teach impersonalism in order to counteract the Buddhism. But it's also said that this impersonalism is also some kind of misinterpretation. But because Buddhism was very strong and people, they were not used anymore to the Vedic thought of higher consciousness, and they were just putting emphasis on moral standards and ahimsa, free of violence. Therefore, Shankaracharya, he taught a form of Vedic understanding that was not too much shocking for them, which is impersonalism. So Shankaracharya, he again established the authority of the Vedas, but he mainly emphasized on the impersonal feature of the Supreme. So the followers of Shankaracharya until today, which are the very prominent Hindu preachers, so to say, who also came to the West, and they are mostly following monism, Advaita Vad, which says everything is one, and the goal is the supreme light and to merge in that supreme light, which is one side of the story, but it's not the complete story, because the complete story is that the supreme light, there is also variegatedness in it, and we have to develop a relationship with the personal aspect of God. But that much could not have been accepted by the Buddhism, because it is like too much. So Shankaracharya, he preached this impersonalism. By that he could re-establish the authority of the Vedas, but he didn't teach it to the last end, because it could not have been accepted by the Buddhists. But at least after Shankaracharya, Buddhism was more or less defeated in India, and again the Vedas were established as an authority. Then later, after Shankaracharya, different Vaishnavacharyas came, like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Swami, different type of, but most prominently are Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya, and they again could use the basis of the Vedas, because people again, they believed in the Vedas thanks to Shankaracharya, and again they could establish the bhakti path, that we need to develop a personal relationship with God, and that the impersonalism is true, but it is just half of the story. And that made way, the Madhvacharya and the preaching of Ramanujacharya made way that later Mahaprabhu could appear. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he appeared 500 years ago in Bengal, and he is not an ordinary incarnation, but that is a topic for itself. And he then preached the supreme form of bhakti, which is Vraja Bhakti, which will be discussed in other videos. But basically, this is just a short history, is that in the beginning of Kali Yuga, Parikshit Maharaj was still strong, and everything was established under Vedic principles. Then, because the Brahmana caste started to deteriorate, and that was shown in the first incident that Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die, and then the deterioration of the Brahmanas led that the Vedas were widely misused and misinterpreted, which led to the incarnation of Buddha, who rejected the Vedas and established just moral principles. And then based on these moral principles again, Shankaracharya came and re-established the authority of the Vedas, but he did so only in a bit tricky manner by pushing the impersonal feature of the Supreme, which is more in tune with Buddhism. And later, on the basis of the authority of the Vedas, then other acharyas could come, like Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, who could then more nicely establish again the Vedic Siddhanta, which is that we are eternal souls and we are part of the Supreme Consciousness, and the goal of human life is to connect ourselves to the Supreme Consciousness. And that was then made the ground ready for the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the Yuga avatar and who taught the Yuga Dharma, which is the chanting of the holy name. Yeah, so this is the short video, this is the short development of Vedic culture within the Kali Yuga, from full establishment of Vedic culture to deterioration and slowly again established of the pure Siddhanta, the pure conclusion of Vedic thought. Thank you very much for listening. See you in another video.